How you doing? Steve Noble, Noble Moto. What we're going to do today is we're going to check the valves on old cb350. This is pretty much the same setup for a lot of old bikes. They have, a valve or a cam down the middle of it, and then a little rocker arm that goes on top of the valve versus the overhead cam design. So even though it's just old cb350, it applies to KZs, a lot of the XSs, and a bunch of other different motors. So let's get right to it. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to pull off this cover here. I do already have the bolts loosened up on the thing. But this is going to give us access to the cam adjusters for just actually moving the rocker arms and adjusting the clearance. And I'll get more in detail that later. And then on these old cb350s, really on all of the old CBs, you have little access tabs here, and then of course the other side. And it makes it really easy to get in there and adjust the valves on it. You don't have to pull the valve cover or anything. Just 17 millimeter wrench, break it free. It's right on out of there. Drop it on the floor. If you end up with oil leaking out of these things, there's a little O-ring kind of compressed down in there. You can pick up replacement parts. I think Moto has them in stock. A little shout out to some friends of ours there. All right, so what we're actually checking is the clearance in here, in between this rocker here, if you can see it, and the top of the valve right here. And the idea is, with this being an air-cooled motor, as it expands, you want to have a little bit of clearance there, just for expansion contraction. Plus, you want to make sure lubrication's getting out of there. Plus, you just want to make sure that the rocker arm and the cam is completely releasing, so the valve is being fully pushed closed by the valve spring. That way you aren't getting any leak through, and it's getting a good seal for your combustion. So with the specs on these is 4,000 clearance for the exhaust valve. So I have a feeler gauge here. I have the 4,000s out. You can't read it, but it actually says 4,000s on there. And this motor is actually pretty good already, but the idea is you'll slide it up right in there, if you can see, in between the rocker arm and the top of the valve. Now, in order to do this, you want to make sure that the valve is... In order to do this, you want to make sure that the cam is not trying to push the valve closed. In this case, we have a kickstart motor, so we can just roll the motor over by hand here. And as the motor rolls over, you'll be able to see the rocker arm push the valve there. So you can pull the spark plug out of the thing, and you can actually look down into the spark plug and make sure the cylinder is at top dead center to verify that the cam lobe is off of the rocker. Or in this case, we can just actually look in there and see that it's already got some rocker clearance going on. You can hear it. Actually, there's way too much clearance. But we know that the cam is not pushing, the cam lobe isn't pushing on the rocker, so therefore it's not pushing down the valve, so we can check it in this position. There's a swarm of other ways to do it, and if you go through your service manual, get the dead-on one, you can use your timing marks, so on and so forth. So to slide this up in here, you want to have a loose fit, but not so loose that it just slaps all over the place. All right, so what I did was I actually went through the feeler gauges and figured out what the gap actually is on this motor. I found the 15 thousandths gap feeler gauge just barely fits up in there, which means this is 15 thousandths clearance. So when this motor was running, this valve was just tapping like crazy and probably making all kinds of noise. And there was a little bit of loss of performance from not having it super close to the valve. So we need to reset this back down to the 4 thousandths clearance. All right, so over here on the side, after where we pulled this cover off, you'll see a little Phillips bit and like a jam nut that's on here. And the way is this shaft here is the actual shaft that the rocker arm actually moves on. I have another setup I'll show you in a little bit that actually explains it in more detail. But the steps are, we're going to break this nut free here. I'm going to crack that free. And then we'll make our adjustments by holding the nut in place. Well, we can just back off, leave the wrench there. We're going to make our adjustments by putting a little flathead screwdriver in here and turning this back and forth, and that's actually going to move the rocker arm up and down to adjust the clearance. All right, so what we got going on here, we got the screwdriver and the flathead bit down here in the corner of your screen. And if you look up in here, your rocker arm here is on a whole cam assembly. And I have this valve train off just so you can see what's going on. So as I turn the screw here, you can see the whole assembly moving back and forth. There.
And basically what's happening is that is adjusting the clearance from where it sits on the cam to where it sits on top of the valve over here. So we will take feeler gauges and we'll slide them in here underneath the, we'll slide them in here underneath the rocker arm and in between the valve. And then we're going to take the flathead little screwdriver here and we're going to turn this until we get the appropriate amount of clearance there. Then once we find that exact little spot with the appropriate amount of clearance, we're going to hold this nut in place, or hold the shaft in place, then take the box end wrench and tighten it up to lock it down, then check the clearance again. And that should set us right into place.
Gonna take the cap, like I said, tighten this up. Take this cap, put it back into place. Seal up there. Put the rest of the bike back together, ready to go ride. Obviously, you don't need to tear the bike apart to this level to do your valves. That's all I really got. Check me out. Click the subscribe and the link below. Subscribe to my videos. Get updates on everything else that's going on. Check me out on my website, www.noblemoto.com. That's KNOBLE.com. And if you like my sweet fade, check out Mel's Barbershop in Cam's Corners, West Park. I'll put a link in the description below so you can go see what's going on. Say hi, give him some money. He does great work. That's all I got. Ride fast, take chances.